Tracking our first fall atmospheric river across the Pacific Northwest and into California as well. I'm ABC 10 Chief Meteorologist Monica Woods in the capital city of California here in Sacramento. So our first fall rain is set to arrive Monday into Tuesday, kicking out the first full week of fall with rain totals anywhere from about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch north of I-80. So this particular atmospheric river primarily hugging the northern part of the state. The impacts being slick roads and gusty winds. The slick roads, especially with the first rain of the season, can be especially dangerous. All that oil kind of sitting on the top of the roads. Once the rain hits it, it just provides a really big hydroplaning potential. The gusty winds also problematic, especially when we talk about the dry conditions, despite the fact we're going to see some of the wetting rain in Northern California. As those winds start to ramp up with the passage of the cold front, we'll see our red flag warning in effect primarily just along the northeast section of California into the Nevada border, parts of Oregon as well. That'll be Monday afternoon. Dry north winds initially, low humidity. So if there is a fire start, it could spread very quickly with the gusty winds that will be taking place mainly into Monday afternoon. Evacuation plans should already be ready at this point in the season. As far as the winds in the Sacramento metro area, generally about 15 to 20 miles per hour. Nothing too concerning. It's once we head into the northeast section that those wind gusts get above 25 miles per hour. And again, it's based on the amount of dead fuel as well as dry fuel and the gusty winds that promote the red flag warning. And that will start to taper off by Monday evening into Tuesday. And again, we are expecting some wetting rain. So there's a couple of issues we're going to be tracking along with that red flag warning. We'll take it back up to the northwest coast where we have a wind advisory in place through Monday late in the day. We'll see some gusty winds once again. That front starts to move on through. Now, on top of that, we also had a number of fires burning in the northern part of the state. With the burn scars, we have the potential to see a bit of slides, mud flows, debris flows, and a flood watch will be in effect through tomorrow. Not a whole lot of rain, but enough so that's going to cause us to keep an eye on all of that. This is the exact time of year that we start to see our rain opportunities increase. We go through many months without any rain at all, primarily much of May, June, July, August, even September. Then in October, once we really start to change into that new month, especially towards the end of the month, we get about 0.8 of an inch of rain. It really ramps up by December, January, and February, which, by the way, is going to be the months that we also see some of the peak El Nino conditions starting up as well. This is right about the time we're starting to wrap up our water year as well. Keep in mind, last year was an epic year. Some of the ski resorts reporting the most snow they've ever seen since modern tracking began. So our water year ends on September 30th of this year. It'll start off the new water year on October 1st. So our water year started last October 1st. It's going to end this September 30th. And these are the numbers across the state. All of us, just really huge numbers. I will say Palm Springs only just recently came up above average, and that was because of the remnants of what was Hurricane Hillary moving through Southern California. It has been quite a year for California residents north to south dealing with the amount of rain and snow over this past water year. And again, we're about to empty that rain gauge and start off a new water year. In terms of our reservoirs, now this is something that we were tracking very closely along with the rivers. We had some river flooding and also the reservoirs were getting awfully full, which was good news, by the way, because we came off of several years of drought. So filling those reservoirs was a really big concern and something that people wanted to see. That is part of our drinking water. It gets sent south into much of the agricultural area. So there's many benefits to filling these reservoirs. At this point in the season, what happens is that water managers basically have to have this fine line between keeping as much water in the reservoirs as they can, but also preparing for the next water year. So generally speaking, those reservoirs start to get pretty low at this point in the season. But if you take a look at the historical average and where reservoirs sit, we're still well above average. Shasta, 130% of average. This green line right here would indicate where that reservoir usually is at this point in the season. And right now we're above it. So we're sitting at 74% full, but 130% of average. Oroville, equally as good. 75% full, 137% of historical average. I think a lot of people in California are going to be happy that there's still that much water in those reservoirs. 70% full for Folsom, 135% of average. Now, the other side of this, and I do want to say, if you're over towards the rivers, they are running really high right now because those reservoirs are still releasing water. So everything downstream is running pretty high. New Melones, that's a big winner right there. 79% full, 141% of average. Don Pedro, 85% full and 123% of average. San Luis Reservoir, if you happen to go through Pacheco Pass and see San Luis Reservoir, it is gorgeous right now. Can't even see barely the bathtub line. It's just 81% full. Beautiful conditions over there. 195% of average. So traveling out of the valley over towards the coast, that's where you pass through San Luis Reservoir and things just look spectacular. Now, this first atmospheric river that's hitting us is kind of the flip-flop of what we normally see in an El Nino pattern. Typically, we see a drier and warmer Pacific Northwest and then a wetter Southern California. Well, this first atmospheric river is kind of flip-flopping here, and it is going to be mostly hitting the Pacific Northwest. But El Nino pattern continues to strengthen. This is the latest from ENSO, and you can see it looks very likely it's going to continue through the winter season. So that pattern of potentially a wetter than average Southern California could possibly be coming into fruition as we head into, say, December, January, February. And really what they're saying is those signatures of that wetter than average conditions look like mid-January into February is when we could see that really kick into high gear. So a lot to be seen. The first atmospheric river, again, is going to be hitting the Pacific Northwest. We will see some of the effects of this, but it's a Category 1. So what does that mean? I know we kind of have to refresh our brains a little bit talking about atmospheric rivers because we haven't had to talk about this in several months. So an AR1 is primarily beneficial. These will be beneficial rains. Now, as we dig deeper into the season and say, let's say we get an AR3, well, it's going to be both beneficial and hazardous. And it really depends on what is the soil saturation? What do the rivers look like? What do the reservoirs look like? If we get a weak system, but everything is just at max capacity, that atmospheric river could start to move up the scale here. So each one will be looked at independently for the types of conditions that are the antecedent conditions and then what's happening with the system coming through. Here it is on our satellite and radar, and you can see clearly that this is going to be affecting the Pacific Northwest. There's the low, and it tends to move up to the north ever so slightly, but the tail end of it brushing Northern California. That's why we're expecting much bigger impacts along the Northwest coast and parts of extreme Northern California than, say, through the Central Valley, where we'll get some cloud cover, but we're really struggling to get any of the rain. You can see as I've got this zoomed in pretty closely here how the rain will be just up to the north. Best chance of those showers moving through the Central Valley will be overnight Monday into early Tuesday. Quick moving system for us. It's in and out of here. And as far as total accumulation, we're going to struggle to pick up anything south of I-80. Here's our I-80 line for those of you that aren't too familiar. There it is right there. This is Highway 50 going into South Lake Tahoe. So north of this, we've got some decent potential for some showers, say, around Yuba City, Grass Valley, maybe even into Auburn, but they're along the Northwest coast. And we'll take a look at the bigger view here, how that system is really going to pull its way into Northern California, and even some subsequent showers coming in late on Tuesday through early Wednesday, increasing the rain totals. And the rain and snow continue, actually, for Washington and Oregon. Here's a look at some of the higher resolution models showcasing how much rain we're expecting. And where you see these color contours right here, here's our key right up at the top. And as we see the red and yellow starting to pop up, that's clear. It's along the Northwest coast with very little rain, where we see some of those red flag warning conditions on the northeast corner of California. Some lighter totals right through the Central Valley and the North Bay area, and some higher totals from about Fort Bragg through the Northwest coast. Here's another weather model. This is the Euro, depicting pretty similar conditions in terms of the accumulated rainfall. So we're really not expecting much of a wild swing between differing weather models coming in with this first weather system. Now, here's the catch. The beginning of fall looks very likely cooler throughout the west, as well as likely wetter just off to the east of Sacramento and throughout California. Parts of the Oregon and Washington, especially on the east side, likely wetter. And that'll be, again, for the first week of fall. Nice to kind of kick off this new season with that. With these cooler conditions, we start seeing the color throughout, especially the higher mountains. This is up at Mammoth, a recent picture up there, also showing we still have some snow on the mountains. Mammoth, by the way, recording their snowiest season on record. It's taken a lot to even get some of that snow off the mountaintops, kind of refreshing and getting ready for this new season, this upcoming season, but there's still plenty of color up there. In fact, you can share your fall leaf photos with us. You can hit the Near Me tab or email weather@abc10.com. Some of the places that we're seeing some of the earlier color is going to be through the Intermountain West over towards New England as well. We really get into some of our peak color in mid-October to late October once we start to see those temperatures changing, as well as the earlier sunset and the later sunrise. So the changing of the leaves for us is late September along US 395. October is going to be Tahoe, Highway 89, and then by mid-October, that's when Lhasa, Shaston, Yosemite, which are great hiking places to see some of that peak color. Late October is going to be Apple Hill and Calaveras. That's really a busy time for the Apple Hill and Calaveras areas in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountain. And then for November, that's when we start to see it a little bit lower on the valley floor. Our peak color kind of comes and goes pretty quickly, though. Our temperatures are going to help to get some of that color going, especially with these cool nights. Look at that, 30s for overnight lows in the Sierra, 60s for afternoon highs, 70s down low. Along the coast, we've got 70s, and we'll take those 70s inland. This is going to be about 10 degrees below average. That's how we start off our first week of fall. The mountains, especially south of I-80, really struggling to get some of those showers coming through, but that may mean it's a good time to go up there, do some hiking and also some camping, kind of the tail end of all that season going on. Along the coast, we're, again, struggling to get any of that shower activity really ramping up unless you're on the North Bay area. So for our 10-day forecast, we've got that slight chance of showers overnight Monday into early Tuesday, but you'll see across the board here, this is a very fall-like feel in the forecast.